Mark Twain is supposed to have said, "Most people are bothered by the passages in Scripture they cannot understand. But as for me, I've always noticed that the passages in Scripture which trouble me most are the ones I do understand." Whether Mark Twain said it or not, it's a good opening as we consider the reading from Mark's Gospel. It's a good place to start. Most people are bothered by the passages in Scripture they cannot understand. But as for me, I've noticed that the passages in Scripture that trouble me most are the ones I do understand. So this passage is among the most difficult and confronting in the whole Bible. There's nothing hard about understanding what it is saying, but working out what to do with it is another matter. Someone said once that you can always recognize a church where people are genuinely committed to obeying the literal meaning of the Bible because they all have one hand, one foot, and one eye. There are a couple of keys to getting our heads around this passage. The first is to take note of the relationship between the first part and the second part. The issue in the first part is how we are to judge the actions of others, and the issue in the second is how we are to judge ourselves. And the standard is quite different. In the first part, one of the disciples, John, is concerned about the actions of someone who was not part of the group of disciples. John reports that he and some of the disciples have seen a man healing people and casting out demons and claiming to do it on the authority of Jesus. John thinks that Jesus is not aware of this man. He's certainly not one of the disciples, so John wants to have the man stopped. But Jesus apparently doesn't go along with John's thinking. He gives John and the other disciples a bit of a lecture. Those who are not against us are for us, and those who are not opposing us are on our side. Those who are not our enemies are our allies. Or in other words, when it comes to judging others, give them the benefit of the doubt. And that's a difficult lesson. If they claim to be motivated by Christ, take their word for it. If they're not doing any harm, then count them as friends and support what they are doing. That's hard enough for some of us, but what is to follow is even harder. We immediately get into the second half, and the tone changes rather dramatically. Jesus speaks about causing another to stumble. If anyone should cause one of these little ones to lose faith in me, it would be better for that person to have a large millstone tied around the neck and be thrown into the sea. This appears to be a direct reference to what they've just been talking about, because Jesus is saying that if you start putting up roadblocks to stop anyone who's not part of your group, you may be causing someone to stumble in their journey of faith. It's a scary verse for the organized church because we're naturally concerned about correct belief and practice and order. Jesus is pointing out that these concerns may lead us to do stupid things that cause other people to be put off and give up. So in light of this, Jesus goes on to give his extremely confronting advice about how to judge others. You can be generous in your assessment of others and give them the benefit of the doubt. But when dealing with yourself, eliminate all doubt. You can overlook the shortcomings of others if they're not causing any great harm. But when it comes to yourself, get the knife out. I'm quite sure that Jesus is not actually looking for more one-handed, one-footed, half-blind disciples in response to his teaching. But he is demanding an extremely rigorous, uncompromising approach to dealing with the roots of sin within ourselves. I think Jesus is telling us to be ruthless on anything that keeps tripping us up and causing us to fall into sin. And I think he's making the point that sometimes this may mean giving up things that are not bad in themselves. For example, alcohol is not inherently evil. Most people can enjoy a drink without any difficulty, but not everyone. For some people, alcohol is something they can't enjoy without ending up behaving very badly indeed. A few drinks and they become irresponsible, violent, and abusive. Chop it off. For such a person, Jesus is saying, it would be better to never have another drink in your life than do the sort of damage you're going to do if you touch this stuff. Chop it off. If you can't handle it without degrading yourself, disregard it completely, avoid it completely. Could be other things. It might be investing in the stock market, gambling, going to the football, or shopping, buying more clothes for the wardrobe, getting the latest must-have gadget. It can be anything that plays to your weaknesses, or which has somehow become psychologically linked with your trigger points. If you spot a pattern of behavior where involvement in something leads you down unhealthy and destructive paths, give it up, chop it off. Better to hobble into heaven than prance into hell. So in this passage, Jesus' message is, go tough on yourself, but go easy on others. The church has caused stumbling blocks to many people by trying to make an absolute law out of something that is a good idea for some people. It's extremely important to get the stumbling blocks out of your own path Don't do it by throwing them into someone else's path.